Oh, okay. Looks like I'm out of focus. Let's see here. All right, that's better. Okay, that's better. Um, okay, that works. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in. I apologize about being out of focus early. If you see my previous video, I was complaining or asking for your forgiveness that the video was out of focus. So I actually picked up this little tool here that I'll talk about later. But in this video, I appreciate you tuning in. This video, what I want to have with you is a comprehensive conversation about going within. Keep watching. Okay. All right. Again. All right. Thank you for tuning in. So, I've taken a break. I had to take a break because, I've been doing a lot of studies, of course, and whenever you're seeking or whenever you're on the path of attainment, it takes a little bit more than just reading a book. Even though reading is something that's very important in terms of waking up particular memories that you have, and basically just tapping back into something that you've already known, but maybe through psychological stratagem or wars that are taking place, you might have forgotten. So we want to deal with that. But also, it takes being a practitioner to where you're not only just reading information and digesting it, but you're actually practicing that which you are studying, because you have to make it real, if that makes sense. Some of you might know that I took a trip to so-called Africa, and what encouraged that trip was the ability to be able to go back to the book of Genesis, that's in the book that we've been taught to call the Bible. And when I was wanting to make it real, and this is an example of being a practitioner, I noticed how it was talking about certain localities and so forth. So I was doing research into older maps, not necessarily dealing primarily with what's being promulgated today by the civilization of deception. And some of those maps might be like the so-called McCoy map and so forth. And then you have other maps that exist. But anytime that you want to tear down the walls of deception, it's very important to seek the old path. So by doing that, I started researching older maps. And by doing that, it led me on a breadcrumb, and I wanted to visit certain areas in that continent that we've been taught to call Africa. But that's just an example of being a practitioner. So whenever you are on a path of attainment, it's very important that you provide case studies for yourself. So I had to take some time off from doing videos to perform case studies. So I had to basically go out into the world and put myself in certain positions that I wouldn't always put myself in, but I had to test the information that I was learning and the information that I had always known to verify if it was true or not. So in this video, what I wanted to talk to you about, have a comprehension study or conversation on the importance of going within. So as you know, by looking at a couple of the videos on the channel, you'll notice that I deal with esoteric and exoteric information in retrospect to how it influences decisions that people make in certain cultures and in certain groups and in certain races, or what we've been taught to call races, because even when you look at that, you'll notice that some of these things only exist in the minds of the people. And then you have to go and look at who is projecting themselves as having the power to define, and why are they defining things in the way that they're doing so. So what you'll come to find out, that someone is benefiting from this. So in this video, I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about the importance of going within, because esoteric deals with that which is kind of hidden. So we can look at that as going within. And then exoteric deals with that which is like on the outside. So that would be something that's external. So that would be the information like what the masses receive. So like, for example, a neophyte in a sense, or someone who is being trained, we wouldn't want to deal with that because that deals with more of the external. So we want to deal with that which is hidden, that which is on the inside. So whenever you go within, you'll notice that there's a war that's taking place. And the war that's happening, of course, is the so-called lower self at war with the higher self. And what you come to find out that there's certain lands that are taking place within you that have been confiscated by the lower self, and they are ruling. And we can define the lower self when we start dealing with like the senses and everything like that. So the five senses, so to speak, what smells good, what tastes good, what sounds good, what feels good, and so forth. So you'll notice that there's a group, and I like to identify them as the civilization of deception. And we don't actually have to put a so-called crayon color on it, which is what the masses of the people are operating under. We just want to group them under the civilization of deception because they can be black, white, green, polka dot, and purple if we want to deal with it from the crayon box perspective. But in retrospect, what we're dealing with is energy. Okay, so we're dealing with intelligence. So it's very important to know what energy or what intelligence you are tapped into, because that is a direct response and reflection of what you see and what you contribute towards. So this is just kind of like an introduction of how to go within. One of the resources that I want to provide you with is one of the resources that is widely known today, and it's the book that's called the Bible. And obviously, the goggles have been given to the masses of the people. Anytime that conversation comes up, because the results don't quite reflect what the masses are saying, and the word that they use is love. I mean, I'm telling you, they use that word a lot, right? But when we look out here and we don't see that, right? We see like more of a seesaw effect, like because if it's all about this love, so to speak, then why is it that everything's on a tilt, on an axis when it comes to how the love is being distributed? So we have to take a look at these things, and we have to open up the investigation on that. But when you go into that book, what you'll come to find out that there's a set of instructions that are in there that is very key to helping you move past the so-called external, if you get what I'm saying. So in the civilization of deception groups, where they hand out emotional refreshments, they tend to say that the law is no more. Now, this law is something that was given to the so-called Israelites, for example. But when you look at those instructions, what you'll come to find out is those instructions really help you move past the external, because when you look at all the billboards, when you're traveling around in certain areas, when you look at the shows that are being promoted, the movies that are being promoted, the magazines, everything that's being promoted in this illusion or in this world is really causing everyone to walk in opposition of those instructions that was given to that particular group. So I think that it might be in your best interest, as someone that is looking to take the path of going within, to say, okay, well, we've tried everything else. If you really think about it, you've tried politics, you've tried economics, you've tried changing your form of dress, you tried changing the way that you speak, you've tried changing your hair color, you've tried changing your hairstyle, there's so many things that you've tried. And if you look at yourself from, say, 5 Earth years ago, 10 Earth years ago, or 20 Earth years ago, for example, you'll notice that you've been going through changes. Music has changed. Styles of dress have changed. Politics have changed. Everything has changed except for the systems that you're locked into, like you're doing holidays or what people call holidays, and you're locked into those systems, the same educational systems, the same religious systems, the same way that you're supposed to be in a relationship or get out of a relationship, the same way that you're supposed to do everything is kind of structured in a way. So you have to find out and look into that. But then when you look at the social system, then you'll notice that if you actually go and look at those instructions, you'll see this is in opposition of those instructions. So it might be in your best interest to try it. Like, for example, the diet. When it says in the so-called book of Leviticus, how it goes over certain foods that are clean and certain foods that are unclean. Now, when we look out here today from an external perspective and an internal perspective, because this is a comprehensive conversation on going within, right? So if we look at that which goes into the mouth, if you'll notice that a lot of stuff that's being promoted is that which is unclean, if you really think about it. And then we have all these sicknesses that are going on. But instead of saying, okay, maybe let's try this, it's like try this pill or try this injection and so forth. But it's always a band-aid to cover up the issues, and that really actually produces more issues, and it never really fixes anything. So it just keeps something going because there are systems that are benefiting from you being sick. But in that book, it says that I will remove all sicknesses from you if you do this. So why not promote that and have no sicknesses? So if we can't rely on the civilizations of deception to encourage that, you have to take it upon yourself, because what you're going to come to find out is that you have to save yourself. This is a soul journey, and your soul has been on a journey for quite some time, possibly, if you are an ancient. And so it's very important that you wake up or you get up out of your deep sleep and start doing something a little bit different, because you want to be in the world, but not of it, so to speak. And so I just want to give that example on how that could possibly help you go within. So let's start with like maybe the diet. So let's look at the diet. You can find that in Leviticus chapter 11, where it deals with what is clean and what is unclean. So this is just like some encouragement to say, hey, why don't you try something different, right? And then we have like styles of dress, and then we have types of clothing that you should wear, like in terms of the fabric and so forth. So when you do these things that will shut you off from the external, then you can start on the pathway of going within. Because if you don't handle the external first, and you'll notice that some people will have a little bit of something, but they won't have the completeness, or they won't actually have the full recipe or formula for a thing. And there is sometimes something that appears to be right, but if you don't do everything in the right order, then you end up being on the wide path, and that wide path leads you to your lower self, which is the dog, so to speak. So everything is kind of reversed. So you have the God aspect, so to speak, which is the upper self or the higher self, and then you have the lower self, which kind of deals with more of the animal. So like, for example, and this is just a conversation, and you can leave comments down below the like button, and we can dialogue about it. But typically you have two versions. You have like the will to bestow, and then you have the will to receive. So the will to receive kind of deals with the lower self, and it's like, okay, what's in it for me? What can I get out of this? If you get what I'm saying. And then you have the will to bestow, where you're kind of thinking about things in the aspect of us as a people. And that shows that you are a positive electron, and you're not a Cancer, if you get what I'm saying. So, or you're not something like a germ, something that's a negative germ, and so forth. So we want to kind of get away from that, even though you are a library of viruses and so forth, if you look at it from that level. But we're not going to get into that in this video. This is just a quick conversation, but I just wanted to kind of give you some stepping stones that you could potentially walk on that could lead you to the path of going within. So you have to handle that external. So you have to be willing to fast from the world. And what that means is you have to be able to shut yourself off from everything that's going on out there. And that will also help you be able to remove the fog a little bit, because when the board is so close to your face, it's hard to see like all the moves, if you get what I'm saying. It's hard to see who's tricking you or who is not. So sometimes you have to pull the board back so you can see the whole board, if that makes sense. So when you're talking to those such as like unto myself who are up on the watchtower, when you're up on the watchtower, you can see a long ways away, if you get what I'm saying. But most of those those that are in the world, they open a door down on the first floor. They look out, they don't see nothing. You get what I'm saying? So they're like, what are you talking about? Everything looks fine to me. So it's very important that we listen to those who are up on the watchtower, because they can see a long ways away. So we see things closing in on us as a people. So it's very important that that we talk to you about a more divine way of doing stuff, so we can kind of separate you from everything else that's going on out there, and be able to know and identify you and so forth when the harvest is ready. So winter is the world, summer is the other ram, and you have to sow in the winter in order to reap in the summer, if you get what I'm saying. So, like I said, this is just a comprehensive guide on going within. So it's very important to do that. So, like, for example, when it talks about entering into your closet type thing, and it's not talking about something coming this way in terms of speaking it this way. It's talking about speaking from within, and so to speak. So there are a lot of sources out there that can possibly help you with that. I'll leave some underneath the like button in the description area, so you can seek out these sources for yourself. But the most important thing to start with is that law. Now, this will be, I'll label this one part 1. And then maybe we can have a conversation in the comment section about your path of trying to actually be obedient to something, some set of instructions that will help shield you from the external, so the door can open to the inside. The doors of the temple can start to open from the inside, and then there's a set of instructions that you have to do there as well. So there's a step-by-step process. So the first step is being obedient to something, and then you want to do the complete opposite of what basically the world is saying, the civilization of deception is saying, because we see the fruit of that tree, if you get what I'm saying. And it says, by the fruit you shall know the tree that is speaking to you. Because in the garden, and you have to really, really be seeking this type of knowledge, because that's the only way everything is going to be able to open up for you to where it makes sense. But in the garden, you had a situation where someone was told not to do a thing. It says, of all the trees thou mayest freely eat from or listen to, but of that tree that is talking like this, or that has this kind of fruit, thou should not eat of that, or thou should not listen to them, because the day that thou eat of that tree or listen to them, thou shalt surely die, right? So what we have happening, of course, is we had those trees being listened to, and then that fruit, or that was being ate, and then they saw, right? They saw that they were naked, because they now had the knowledge of what? Good and evil. So if they saw that they were naked, and they perceived that as apparently evil, because that's why they hid themselves, and they sewed something together to hide their shame, because they saw evil now. Are you hearing me? So so then when the presence of that entity was in there and was looking for them, obviously, in order to be looking for someone, that means that you can't see. And then when they made themselves known, they said, hey, we hid ourselves because we were what? Naked. And then that entity said what? Who told you you were naked? That entity did not say, did you eat an apple? Did you eat a plum? Did you eat a grape? You don't consume knowledge that way, because it says man should not eat by what? Bread alone, if you get what I'm saying. So you eat by what goes here and what goes here, if you get what I'm saying. And the trees are those that are around you, casting fruit, and by the fruit you shall know the tree that is before you. Does that make sense? No good tree can bring forth what? Corrupt fruit, and no corrupt tree can bring forth what? Good fruit. By the fruit you shall know the tree. All right. So that's the reason why I'm wanting to encourage you to go and study those first 5 books, because we have those that I call the civilization of deception that are casting out fruit that is very corrupt. Okay, so by going away from those instructions and finding a more divine way of listening to something, you will be able to find that in those first 5 books. Okay, just put it to the test. You tried everything else, right? And once you see that you start doing that, and we're not dealing with like a name or religion or any of that kind of stuff. We just want to deal with it from the perspective of an operating system. Because if you have a vehicle, it has a manual, right? And it tells you what kind of fluid, if it's a gas powered vehicle, or if it's an electric vehicle, so to speak. It basically gives instructions on where to charge, or if it takes certain types of transmission fluid and so forth. So it comes with a manual, is basically what I'm getting at. And if you follow the instructions of the manual, you will experience great results, if you get what I'm saying. But if you go away from that manual in any way, you're going to experience what? Malfunctions and breakdowns. Do you hear what I'm saying? So what we're looking at when we look at the people today, they're sick, they're overweight, they're coughing all the time, what I'm saying? Their skin is throwing up. And there's so many things that are taking place. That means that someone is sick. That means that someone is not following the manual properly, and they're having malfunctions and breakdowns, if you get what I'm saying. So if you want to fix it, you have to go to the operating system. You have to go to the manual. You don't just slap a Band-Aid on there. You don't just, give someone a pat on the back and say, just keep on kicking the can down the road. One day it'll all get better, or take this vaccine. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reason why I'm encouraging that as the operating system, or the manual for you, if you get what I'm saying. So let's look at it like that. And let's see what kind of results we get. All right. So this is part one. Part two, now that we've gone over how to move past the external, I'm going to start introducing some sources on how to open up the doors of the temple from within. If you have any questions or comments about this video, please leave them in the comment section underneath the like button, and I'll be happy to have that dialogue with you. I'll leave a few sources also in the description area that you can pick up and possibly get on this path and so forth. But what you're really interested in doing is you need to go within and you need to study the process of what's happening within you. Like you want the white blood cells, red blood cells, various different glands and organs and so forth. And we want to be able to tie information up with that and try to get more of a higher level of understanding about this whole process that we call existence, so we can unlock the codes and get rid of the intruders. Okay. All right. So I'll see you in the next video and talk to you soon.